Humans have a very serious predisposition to bonding with anything that shows emotion in any type of way. Proof of this is the fact that we have domesticated animals like dogs that wag their tails for us and cats that cuddle with other people. This ability for humans to bond with anything that would reciprocate our feelings is what lets us tell moving stories through film. Most normal stories would not work if it weren't for the amazing storytelling that they're able to achieve through communicating a character's feelings and personal story. This much is evident when we look at the Japanese genre of shomingeki films, the term meaning commoner experience films. This genre of film is usually qualified by a story that tells a very normal tale of someone's daily life. May that be a farmer, a student, or an artist. Animation is a very interesting way of telling stories because you are free from every single human reality constraint. You can create fantastical worlds and things that would otherwise not be possible in live action film. This has been demonstrated time and again by how many animated films touch subjects that live action films would simply be too scared to introduce. One of these subjects is bullying. And that leads me into my first film that I wanted to talk about. A Silent Voice tells the story of Shoko Nishimiya, a deaf girl that has been bullied her entire life for the attached speech impediment that came with being deaf since birth. However, the perspective that we follow through the movie is that of Shoya Ishida, one of her bullies. We are introduced to both of these characters in their teenage years as they are about to graduate high school and have had a lot of time to sit with everything that transpired during their middle school years. Shoya's character is established as pitiful and depressed, most of his plotline leading up to his planned suicide. On the other hand, Shoko is portrayed as the complete opposite. She always has a smile on her face and would never hold any grudges towards anyone, even those that caused her harm in the past. With a cast full of complex characters, we are taking through the lives of both Shoko and Shoya as they learn to forgive not only each other but themselves in every single thing that they have done up to this point. As the characters develop a very strong bond that forms into a beautiful relationship, us as the audience are put in a spot where we want them to succeed so much. We want to see the end of the story so much that we are fully emotionally invested in what this film is showing us. This is partly because, as a Shomingeki story that tells us a common tale, we are able to relate to these events. We are able to relate to the struggle of morality. We're able to relate to a little girl being bullied for being different. We're able to relate to depression, to anxiety. All of these things that we are shown through this story are relatable, common things that as the audience we appreciate being represented in film, in something that's supposed to be fantastical. I must admit, the first time I saw this movie, I ended up on the floor crying uncontrollably because this movie changed my life in such a deep way. Even while gathering clips for this video, I found myself tearing up just from the clips out of order and out of context, because it's such a good and effective way of telling such an emotional story. And the art is just absolutely beautiful. It's no wonder that this movie was nominated for an Oscar. To be fair, the other two films I'm going to When Marnie Was There, a film released in 2015 by Studio Ghibli, but not directed by Hayao Miyazaki, which is probably why it goes under the radar for so many people. The thing that draws you into the story of When Marnie Was There is that feeling of deja vu and dreamlikeness when you find a place that you've seen in a dream, whether that is a little cabin in the woods by a lake, like we see in the movie, or maybe it's a shore, maybe it's a little cozy nook in a library. All these spaces that you thought were false because you see them in dreams, you've never seen them in real life, and then you encounter a place that's exactly like it. It has this feeling of belonging, of yearning that it causes within you. And I think that's genuinely what draws the audiences into this story. Now, what makes you stay for the story is how heartwarming it is to see two little girls bond over being isolated. You have Marnie, who is born and raised in this little castle by the lake and is not allowed outside ever. We also have Anna, who is sent to the countryside to be isolated because of health reasons. And when they find each other, they are both in a very desolate mood where they're looking for something that they're not allowed to have. That something being companionship. And I would say companionship is probably the number one thing most humans look for in life. Putting achievements and recognition and self-accomplishment aside, the number one thing we as people strive for is company. So, having a film entirely be about two girls looking for someone to keep company of each other is probably the most relatable thing you will find. This turn where other films would call this quote unquote found family, where they found a family in each other, makes for an extremely compelling story. Not often do you see a movie so vague in its description of events and yet so clear in its intention. The movie itself can be very quiet at times, but unlike older films that are perceived as quiet and boring, I think When Marnie Was There does an excellent job of using the silence to its advantage. There's no dead space within this silence. The silent moments that are there on purpose to further the atmosphere and to establish this bond between the girls that doesn't need to be explained with words. And of course, as the audience, you are taken through this journey with them and kind of become their third in their friendship. You want to see them succeed and be friends and see the world outside, like they both talk about so often. Unfortunately, we find out that this is all being told in retrospect, which means that it goes from a tale of two girls finding companionship to a tale of an elderly woman reminiscing on her dearest friendship. And that roller coaster of emotions where you never know what's going to be next is genuinely why this film, at least to me, is so important, even to this day. There's something so inexplicable about having that feeling from a film. It's such a beautiful experience, and I would recommend everyone watch this movie, even if I just spoiled most of the plot points. It's such a worthwhile watch. And I think Ghibli genuinely does an amazing job of telling filmingeki stories which is most of their repertoire. They either have fantasy or some kind of daily life story that just turns out to be the most beautiful work of art you've ever seen. Regardless, I'm going off track. My point here was that all of these movies do such an amazing job at telling you a common story that you can find anywhere. The yearning for a connection, the learning how to forgive yourself and other people. And I genuinely think that they are all impeccable films that everyone should experience at least once, whether you like animation or not. Thank you.